Welcome to the Change Loves Company podcast, where I sit down with the creatives, fundraisers, social entrepreneurs, artists and activists, all with one thing in common. They're changing the world for the better through their work. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land I'm recording on today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Always was, always will be. Abbey Pantano is a master connector and has her fingers in a lot of pies. She's a coach at the Community Collective, a global network for community builders. She's the founder of the Impact Collab, a founder-first community where purpose-led businesses grow through momentum, connection, and real-world support. Abbey is an experienced strategist who specializes in serving impact-led founders to design sticky, systems-savvy communities. She built and sold her first co-working space business in Sydney and has spent the last 5 years in community. Her experience includes her role as the community lead at One Roof, which is a membership network which has onboarded 1,500 members and 35 ambassadors globally. If you're sensing a theme, you're absolutely right. We chatted all things social enterprise, community, and why for her, 150 is a magic number when it comes to impact networks. Abbey Pantano, it is absolutely a delight to have you in the studio with us today for Change Loves Company. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge lover of you and your work, and so I'm very grateful to be here.
Fantastic. Well, it's going to be a little mutual fan club today because ditto. So tell me a little bit about that work. You currently run something called the Impact Collab, which I'd like to talk to you about a little bit later. But first of all, I'd like to hear about some of the other things you did to sort of get you where you are today, I guess. You've run businesses, other sorts of networks and things like that. Tell me a little bit about how you've got where you are.
Yeah, I've had my fingers in a couple of different pies, but a lot of times I've realized it's funny how you look back and you're like, oh, all those pies had community in there somewhere. And I think if you'd told me 10 years ago you're going to be a community builder, I'd be like, I don't know what that means. And that doesn't really make any sense to me. But my background was in marketing and partnerships, and that was in the retail industry. And I realized pretty quickly I actually didn't really like marketing that much, but when I got into the partnership side, I was like, wow, how powerful when you realize that you can create something mutually beneficial and have 10 times the impact or 10 times the reach. And so that was kind of, a seed was planted back there. So I was the head of marketing and partnerships in a couple of different there's a lifestyle business, there's a men's fashion, women's fashion. I was the head of marketing and partnerships for a summer lifestyle business for men's fashion, women's fashion, all of the things. The perks were quite nice. I had lots of nice clothing and things around. But it was out of alignment with my values. And I realized that I was particularly towards the end, selling future landfill and going, this doesn't feel right. But I did love the space of partnerships. My first social enterprise was in 2018, and it was a company called The Next Sip. So the fancy way for me to say it is I sold sustainable. The fancy way for me to say it is I sold sustainable drinkware products to hospitality businesses. The simple version is I sold straws to bars. So I found these wheat stem drinking straws. So fun fact, the very first straws were called straw because they're made of straw. So it's just literally going right back to where it started. And so literally you'd pull out the grain, you'd have the husk, you'd bake it, and that was it. And it's so natural that afterwards, so when you have compost, you have to have your carbon layer. So you could put it into your compost to help with breaking down all the food and things like that with your worms. So it was like a true circular economy product. Loved it. Of course, went out, bought way too many of them. And it was when this product had first been discovered. There was only one other person who was selling them in Australia, who I'll get to. But I had ended up getting a really large client. I made a huge investment in product, and then that client realized it was easier to go faster, direct. So yeah, I had a lot of learnings. It was sort of my MBA. Rather than putting my money into my MBA, I went out here and pacing back and forth in front of a store, getting up my the courage to go in and be like, you seen these straws? So I had that as a social enterprise. Then afterwards, COVID happened, and weird time for me to get into something like this. But I became a part owner in a co-working space. And so I kind of used this as the chance to go, know what? We're going to put the straws to rest. I was made redundant from my role because I'd gone down to 3 days a week and was doing 2 days a week with the straws. And I went out and was like, well, what can we do with this co-working space? So the first lockdown, we were just building. We were like, what could this look like on the other side? And I think I realized then how important community was. We were so isolated. We were at home. And I went, on the other side, I really think the power of community. And I had this realization as well that when I had the straw business, part of the reason why it failed was because I wasn't surrounding myself with like-minded people. I wasn't collaborating with them. It's like I was speaking one language when I was going into the office. Then when I was running my own thing, I was sitting at home, closed behind a door. I just burnt out really quickly. And even now, sometimes when I say straws, I'm like, oh.
Well, it's one of those interesting things, isn't it? Because there's like, why do we even use straws? Most of the time, you don't actually need one. I mean, there are certain quite specific times where a straw is extremely useful, but but anyway, that's probably a whole nother conversation. I mean, there's nothing like learning on the job, is there? You do learn from experience, and but I think you're right. If people just do everything themselves from scratch and don't learn from other people's experience, it's a hard slog, and we don't necessarily have time for everyone to work it all out themselves. So as you've said, community is definitely a through line with you. And I imagine you learnt a lot from the Seed Spaces experiment as well.
Yeah, so the co-working spaces, Seed Spaces. Yeah.
How did you get to the Impact Collab model, I guess, and what does it look like now? What is it based on?
Yeah, so with Seed Spaces, it was with an idea that, so there was a point when I went to a couple of traditional business meetups for the social enterprise. I wasn't completely shut off, but I found the conversations were really lacking. I'm a very heart-led person. I believe that that business and society, there's a line where it's like businesses only have a responsibility to their shareholders. That that somehow there was a line that was drawn in society to go, well, we're not responsible for that, but in order to run a business, you need roads, you need people to have gone through the schooling system, you need to have power that goes to your building, someone who builds that. And so to think that, I don't have a responsibility to that piece, we have to kind of broach that subject. And so I think having a conversation with people who believed that their businesses had a power to create a better society, a more sustainable world, when I met those people, I was like, oh, if I'm going to choose my adventure, these are the people I want to go on the adventure with. So the co-working space was a space for me to find like-minded humans to come and co-work together and be like, okay, what are our challenges? How can we overcome it together? So that now there's some like wonderful groups that exist. I mean, SECNA, Social Enterprise Council of New South Wales and ACT, they do wonderful work from an advocacy perspective and bringing together social enterprises. But they were still really early days back when I had gotten started. So I felt like I was really building something new. So first of all, it was around bringing like-minded, heart-led, impact-led founders who are on a mission to create a better world and make enough money at the same time. We sit in this space of playing small, whether or not it's conditioning, it's limiting mindsets that are around money, or giving ourselves fully to impact. So how do we keep held accountable to be like, let's think about money as energy. And if we bring in more money and that's more energy, we can put more good energy out into the world. By just keeping ourselves small, we're keeping our communities small. So it's about really up-leveling. So the co-working space was bringing together those like-minded humans together to bring ourselves up. A rising tide raises all boats. And one piece that I recognized when we were in that space is a lot of us came from, I had the background in marketing and partnerships. I had great background. We've got Nim, who's in our community, who's in the fair trade movement, has an e-commerce business. She had a background in tech sales. So she does B2B. She has amazing skill sets around B2B sales and how do you build process around that? Because I thought it was around just the gift of the gab. Turns out it's not the case. You actually have to have process. So what I did was I went, well, each one of us has a unique gift. It's like if you have the potluck and you go, well, can you bring the starter? I'm going to bring the main and you bring dessert. And so it's just that from a
I'm the
business
salad gal.
perspective. You're a salad
I
gal.
bring the salad because it
Oh,
doesn't
they
require
say
cooking.
that you don't make friends with salad, but I'm going to have to check out one of your salads, I think. What's the secret? Is there like a secret?
Nuts.
Oh, nuts.
Although you have to be careful with that. People have,
yeah. It's a risky
yeah.
game.
Nuts or seeds. Seeds work
I was
really
going to
well.
say halloumi.
A little bit of crunch.
A little bit. Do you put halloumi in your
I have not, but I love halloumi.
Oh.
I mean, Greek background.
halloumi and like
Yeah,
a little
I
bit of
could
honey?
Pretty
over the
much
top?
live
Yeah.
on halloumi.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Let's see. So with the space, it was a couple of things. One is around accountability. So we would do deep work sessions where like by the end of today, I'm going to have this done, and like come and call me out if I haven't done it. The other piece was around skill sharing. So with Nim and her B2B skills, sales experience with me and my background in partnerships, or if people were already working in that space, like I had someone who worked in SEO. We're like, well, where do I even get started with that? And we're like, I'll tell you what, I'll teach you about SEO and you teach me about B2B sales. We're like, okay, great. So I designed structure around that because we also have been in communities where we give and we give and we give. And also and when we just burn ourselves out in the process. So I think it was really important to put parameters and set boundaries around that, which I'm sure I'll touch on later. But it was around creating structure so people could thrive, but they could also do their own work and be okay with saying no. Like I could kind of help create that line. So you might recall we had the first lockdown, and then they went, good news, we're all good, we're all safe, let's all go. We went out, we frolicked and we played, and the co-working space was full. I remember looking around and going, oh, look at all these people, and they're all talking and connecting. And then the second lockdown happened. And the difference between the first and the second lockdown was that with the first one, it was like, we're safe, it's all good, you can go out. And the second lockdown was, oh, look, we've been in lockdown for long enough and it's not perfectly safe, but it's safe enough. And you go, and I think particularly when you have heart-led people coming into a co-working space, it felt a bit funny. And I think during that second lockdown was when I went, okay, we've created structures in this co-working space. Can we just move that online? And I remember I shared a reel. I'm not sure, have you seen the movie Up?
Oh, yes.
And there's Russell, at the start when he meets the main character and he says, I'm here to like help you. Can I help you cross the street? And he goes, no. And he's like, can I help you cross your yard? No. Could I help you cross your porch? And no. And it's like, well, I got to help you cross something. And I felt like that was what I was sort of doing because during lockdown, we thought we knew what we wanted. And sometimes it'd be like, okay, well, let's build it. And then we'd be like, no, that's not what we wanted. But it really became this, it was an exercise in failure for sure to be able to go, I'm going to throw this out. Okay, no, it didn't show up. Oh, people did show up. Oh, I got a lot of good feedback on that. Let's try and keep on doing this. So kind of rinse, repeat, tweak, rinse, repeat, tweak. And what happened was not only were the members staying engaged, because I was like, okay, well, it's supposed to be paying your co-working wage, which is, let's say, $250 a month. Why don't you just pay me $90 a month? And I'm going to keep on keeping us connected. And they're like, okay, great.
So, it was, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It was a real brave new world, wasn't it? I think there was a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And as you say, I remember I had a trip booked, was all paid for. I was going in, I think, April, May, when everything started happening in sort of Feb, all the news from Italy and China was trickling through. And I was like, look, it'll all be over by May, June, and then clearly it wasn't all going to be over. And then, as you say, we had this sort of rolling lockdowns and the government was kind of telling us stuff, but also they didn't really have a clue either. And different parts of the country were in different types of lockdown and lengths of lockdown, things like that. And I mean, in some ways, Sydney didn't have it too bad.
Yeah.
Sydney was
Compared to
kind of,
Melbourne,
not too terrible. And I think that ability to stay connected, as you said, to people who were like-minded, I think was a godsend, right? Because it's isolating anyway if you're running your own little business or maybe you've got a couple of staff, which in our space is sort of considered quite quite medium-sized.
Yeah.
It's mostly, founders sort of or co-founders doing their own thing. And so the isolation of that is quite profound.
Yeah.
So, and it's one thing, I mean, I think there were a lot of people who were doing, let's have a Friday catch up and let's, online and let's do something to keep connected, but as you say, without much structure, it doesn't really go anywhere. So yeah, tell me a bit more about that.
I mean, I think also like to go riff off of your point as well, proximity versus intentional action when it comes to building your community. You know, a lot of times friendships have come from, oh, well, I went to school with this person, or I work with this person and they just sit next to me. But when it comes to lockdown and we're going through like this period of mourning and fear, I mean, do you really want to jump on a call with Dennis from accounts? Not really. And so I think also seeing that value of going, I want to talk to people who share my value system. You actually want to jump on the call there. So I think there was definitely this reminder of going, oh, who are the people I actually through this period will, and there was also an element of facilitation that's there, right? So we had conversation cards because I was going through a process of, with the ending of with the redundancy that I was taking, it got a little bit hairy towards the end. And, you know, with my family, we had to get to a point where no one could ask, how are you doing? Because I would just get so anxious. And there was one point where I was like, I've just got to end this call. And so what we introduced was conversation cards. And I went, oh man, this is wonderful. And so when it came to us coming together, being like, to have this impartial third party that asks a question where you go, oh, that's interesting. Like, let's riff on that. So having someone who is willing to go in and facilitate in a way that we're like, how can we keep this meaningful and light during a heavy period? So I took that really, I didn't take that role lightly because I knew what that felt like when people kept on coming to maybe something negative and I would go, oh, and it would all start feeling like a bit much. Priya Parker, I always recommend it, but I just love it. Priya Parker, The Art of Gathering. Wonderful, wonderful book. And there's another, there's the conversation cards, which are by, I can see her face, but
if it comes to you, let me know. And we can always post it afterwards. Yeah. I think that's having someone kind of leading and driving is really important as well. How do you approach the leadership of the group? Because it is very much, you know, it's non-hierarchical. It's sort of everyone needs to commit, I guess, and to the extent that they're able and willing. What's your leadership style like, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think my superpower is that I definitely don't know everything, and I'm very aware of the fact that I don't know everything. And I think this is what I loved about partnerships is going, rather than being like, I don't know this, it's like, who do I know who knows this, you know? And being able to partner up with them and go, oh, you're really good at this as well. So the Impact Collab gave me that space I love a decentralized design, you know, again, coming back to the entree, main, and dessert, and the wine, all have equal contributions to the entire experience. So within the Impact Collab, I like to call myself a community architect. That's something that I borrowed from Radha Agrawal, who is the founder of the Belong Center. She wrote a wonderful book called I think it's actually called Belong is the book as well.
That rings a bell.
She did well for keeping it all under. I know, I was like, you've just said it. And I loved that. You know, my job is to create structures and safety and some parameters that set up some walls and put the right people into the room and know and trust that they will go and do and create the magic.
But it's not all about size, is it? You've got this thing around, is it 150 people is kind of the sweet spot?
Yeah, so 150 is the cap for the Impact Collab, and that's designed around Dunbar's number. So this is a theory that we can only authentically know 150 people in one time. It comes back to this concept around tribe. So once they would hit that point, they would start to splinter. I think there are like wonderful, wonderful large communities that exist. But the way I want to show up within my community is I pride myself on personally knowing each one of my members. If they go quiet, that I can pick up the phone. I know, and I can pick up the phone and go, "Hey, how you doing? Yeah, everything okay?" So I think there's a level of wanting to be able to hold people. Now there will be in the future where we create chapters that are in other time zones because I think it's really work-life balance is really important. I don't want people joining at 10 p.m., things like that. So, and empowering other community builders to go, hey, I've created a framework for impact and supporting, social enterprises, not-for-profits, and impact in your cities. If you want to go and build that. But yes, 150 is where I cap it.
So obviously there's a massive benefit, as you say, to having a network of like-minded people. You can tap into their expertise, ask for advice, all that sort of stuff. That's great in terms of your individual business or what you're doing. How does that, I guess, people coming together then impact more broadly, say the business community or the business world or the finance world, things like that? What do you have a goal in terms of making the way that Impact Collab members do business kind of business as usual?
I think certainly the power of two things. One is to build relationships with those that you trust, that you feel are heart-led, that do that when they make decisions, they do it with their values in mind and stay in alignment. When we open up doors and we get into large organizations, that we go, I've opened up the door as well for my community. And I've got a wonderful founder who's in the community who does, I was just chatting to them yesterday, LGBTIQ inclusion, and they're doing some wonderful work at a large organization, and was chatting to another one of the founders who does work in marketing and strategy, and went, I just really am not a huge fan on strategy. And she was like, well, I love strategy. So she goes, well, how about we just come and collaborate and you help with strategy and comms, and I'll go and I'll go and do my facilitation work. And the other thing that actually is quite cool, I guess from like a broad impact piece, right? I started in the sustainability arena. As I got to know the UN Global Goals, I realized that how interconnected they are. And I remember actually it was a conversation that we'd had because we were on the same advisory board together around if people are struggling to put food on the table and basically come up for air, they're not thinking about whether they're using a plastic straw or not, or am I, setting up my compost bin. And so realizing that we have to go right to the root. And you look at in communities where if you educate women, they are less likely to have as many children. They're more likely to set up their own business, be self-sustaining. Their money is more likely to go within the communities. There's like this knock-on effect. And when the communities are more are a bit more affluent, then they can start thinking about things like sustainability. It's just there's all these that's not to say that a lot of times they are inherently more sustainable than the Western world.
Yeah,
I was like,
that
I'll take at the same time, then
often it's the colonization which has changed the way they do things, yada yada.
Absolutely.
But again, that is a bit of another conversation.
And probably more thinking from a like on the ground, maybe a local perspective. But there are like these other knock-on effects, and we've been fighting for so long on the left to go, my cause is more important. My cause is more, no, this is why this is more important. And actually realizing that they're all important. And with the Impact Collab, I wanted it to be all 17 of the UN Global Goals. We define impact as direct or indirect contribution to the UN Global Goals. That's how we define impact within the Impact Collab. And I have people who've come in on the humanities space and gone, there's quite a lot of people in sustainability here. And then said person who'd been like in the humanity space is now like one of the leaders in terms of, she messaged me last night and said, sorry, I didn't text back right away. I was organizing my FOGO, which is like the food composting that we have now over in Sydney. She's been like organizing her blister packs. And I think vice versa. I started in sustainability. And then when I had Seed Spaces, I'd run a lot of impact events, and I was like, I want to go broad spectrum. And we had the local asylum seeker center come in and run events and learning about refugee rights. And I've just been able to step into these other spaces that really fill my cup and give me like a wider perspective. And so I think one of the big takeaways that I want, there's like a business takeaway, which is around finding our people, up-leveling each other, opening up the door for each other, and how we it's like a give and take mindset. But on an impact side, I'm thinking about how we cross-collaborate, cross-pollinate, and take our learnings that we have, because ultimately there's actually more of us than there are the people on the right. But if I'm thinking about U.S. politics specifically right now, that's taking over, it's because there's a lack of cohesion that's happening on the left. So we need to be able to go, I see you, you see me, we are both valid, and we're all here from a collective humanity perspective. What can we do to mobilize that?
Yeah, and not competing amongst ourselves, as you say, to sort of say
infighting.
this is more important than something else, or the way that you're approaching it is not completely right. It's like, guys, if we all have the same goal and we're kind of on the same side, let's do this together as much as we can.
There was a really interesting it was on Substack. Priya Parker's got a Substack now. I just love Priya Parker, and she was doing a talk around what the Democratic Party could learn from the Taylor Swift movement. It was really interesting. I'm not really much of a Swiftie, but I admire what's been created there. I think it's really wonderful, and one thing that they're talking about is this kind of, if you're not speaking the exact right language or defining it the exact same way, you can't be here. And one of the things, oddly enough, about the right side is that they are really inclusive. We don't believe in woke culture. You can say whatever you want, which is ironic considering that he's now cracking down on free speech, but whatever, that's a whole other thing. But the main thing was around going, we are all at varying degrees of learning and growing. And to be able to bring people from different causes into one space is to be like, hey, actually, we don't use that term anymore. And someone goes, oh, thank you so much for letting me know. How can we lead with kindness and get it to where it's like everyone's on their own growth journey, meet them where they're at, rather than being like, that's not actually how we do it.
I think too, I mean, if you sit down, one-on-one with almost anyone, you'll find common ground, right? So it's often when we otherize and when we put them in a group and just decide what someone thinks and who they are, that you miss a lot of the subtleties.
Yeah. And I will just add on that one-on-one piece for finding commonality, and something I've gone through this journey. This doesn't happen in text form. If you want to bridge between two different ones, it's a conversation, and ideally face to face, and both coming in with a lens of curiosity. But don't do it over text.
Yeah.
Don't do it over text. Yeah. Easier said than done.
So you've had a pretty sort of interesting peripatetic life. You've lived in different countries and traveled a fair amount. How has that, I guess, helped shape your approach to business?
Yeah, sure. So for context, I was born in New Mexico in the States, to two parents who had immigrant backgrounds. I'm German, Italian, Danish, and Spanish, or Mexican, and so we're a family of travelers. When I was 8, I immigrated to New Zealand, and then I moved to Australia. I think it's 14 years ago. And I finished primary school, went to intermediate and secondary school over in New Zealand. There's a Maori word called your turanga waiwai, which is like, it's like, there's like, where are you from? But also like, where is your heart? My heart is, I am Kiwi. If someone wants to be like, where are you from? And if I was to answer point blank, I'd be like, oh, I'm a Kiwi. I'm from New Zealand. My accent speaks otherwise.
Your accent.
Also my passion for American politics, because it also speaks otherwise. But yeah, I think that, I went to 5 schools in 3 years. I think was the highest concentration of like changing during a period. And something that I'm grateful on that is that experience of being other, of going into a class where everybody knows each other. And sometimes it was in the middle of the year, so they'd all started together, and knowing how much it meant to me when someone reached out in Olive Leaf and said, hey, do you want to come play with us? Shout out to the Spice Girls, my first friends in New Zealand. I did want to be Sporty Spice, but I've got curly hair, so they made me scary. It was okay. But yeah, the bridge. It's like, what is the bridge that what unites us?
But that sort of constant change and everything, and having to meet new people could break some people. So clearly it suited your personality to try and work out how to connect.
Yeah, I think being 8, you kind of work through it. But, it's something that for my son, I know that it's interesting. I think I could do a full immigration because I've built such a wonderful community here, and I know how much work that goes into that. But I do think there'll be a point when we I want him to learn other languages. And if he learns those other languages, say he learns French, and then we go over to another country that's French speaking, and we're there for a year, maybe while he does schooling. But I want to make sure that he gets that experience of going, how nice it is when someone sees you and says, come on in, and creates space for you, and goes, oh, you've got to, did you know that John actually, he like loves crafts as well. Good on John. But yeah, and it's something that has taken right up into when I started my first business. When I go, oh, I think I'm setting this up, and they go, I know someone you have to speak to, and I just be so grateful. And to them, it was something so little, but it's something where I've been trying to pay that forward since.
I always think when politicians are making, immigration laws and things like that, I just think clearly you have never had to, start over or be anywhere where you didn't know the language and, didn't have a network and all that sort of stuff. It's so lacking in empathy and kindness, which is a word you used earlier. It's kind of crazy that they have this very blinkered view, and also massively hypocritical. But again, that's a whole nother conversation.
I want to just mention there's a wonderful book which is called Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I'm sure have you read that before? She's a wonderful reader. It's quite real. All of her, it's quite vivid. She had written The Nightingale. She also wrote The Woman. But so Four Winds goes back to the Oklahoma drought, and how all of the people who were out there, they got to a point where like, I want to live on my land so badly, but I can't because I can't grow anything. I can't sustain life. And them coming over to California and this process of trying to go, I'm a hard worker. I'm here to dig in. I don't want handouts. And so, and it was cast this broad stroke to go, oh, we know what you're here for. And I think that that's something, it's a really important book, I think, for people to be able to understand and have a point of reference to be like, imagine what it would feel like where you're like, I don't necessarily like I was lucky that we wanted to leave. We had the capacity to leave. My parents work in healthcare, so we could immigrate. I come from the US. Like I come from such a place of privilege. Even coming to Australia, being from New Zealand, I've got a Category 1 visa. I was able to just be like, I'm not just book my flight and never go back. And it's like, and that's what it's been. But I think to know that a lot of people who are coming over, they maybe don't necessarily want to come over, but it's the only option for them. And I think, I just think it's a really great book. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, fantastic. And, with some notable exceptions, Indigenous people in Australia, for instance, we're all immigrants.
Yes.
We've all moved from somewhere to somewhere. And, the world is richer for it. Why are we so hung up on where people are from and where they're meant to stay, especially when we're generating the situation, which is, as you say, forcing them to leave. Alrighty, well, we've kind of really gone off topic, which is part of the rich tapestry of the whole thing, isn't it? Final question for me is just, you mentioned you have a son, 18 months. Anything about having a kid that's kind of not so much changed the way you approach things, but just, brought stuff up for you?
I think that, to start with, I was on the fence on whether I wanted to have a kid at all. Climate change obviously is at a forefront for me. The other piece is that the Impact Collab is my baby. It is my first baby. Kai is my human baby, and Impact Collab is my first baby. And I really feel like when I think about what I've been put on this planet to do, I'm like, I feel like I'm doing it. So, but I think from an impact side, it stayed about the same. I'm very aware of these pieces, and now I'm just like, okay, I want to make sure I bring him on the journey. He's coming to every single International Women's Day event, every single rally, every single march. He's going to be a great ally. I just want him to come and listen to voices. But from a business perspective, it was really kind of the piece that drove home that I was like, right, I need systems. I need to have great automated, strong systems. I need to have a team. I now have a team of 4. Before I was like, it's fine. I'll just do it myself. I'll get it done. And those 2 things alone have just made such a huge impact on my business because I'm doing the things I love. I can have a conversation with you at 9:30 in the morning on a Wednesday. If I was doing this all myself, I'd go, I don't know how I'm going to be able to get over there. So I think building great systems, having a team that supports me. I'm now able to do community consulting as well. So I'm able to go, okay, this is what's designed up here, but I'm now helping others who want to design and build out their communities, whether it's making like understanding, is there a community here to start with, rather than spending 2 years of being like, I think, and then burning yourself out and going, maybe I was the wrong person, to go, oh no, actually there wasn't necessarily a market for this, but there's a market for X. 2, existing communities, and how can we make them work better and more functionally? So again, all of that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to take 6 months pretty much off to have him when he arrived. Yeah. I had this hard deadline, I was like a really hard deadline, you don't want to be like laying in bed. I didn't want to be that person because I was like, if I'm going to do it once, I'm going to really do it. I'm going to be here. So yeah, the building systems and finding a team. And it's just to clarify, it's not like I've got 4 full-timers. I think it's wonderful to get to that point, but I've started with 4 wonderful people who do 2 hours a week each for me, and they have their each individual tasks. So it's not a huge financial overlay, but gosh, it makes a huge difference to take some of the repetitive tasks off of my plate.
Delegation, right?
Yeah.
As a founder, I think learning how to delegate and giving people space to do what they do. And it is absolutely amazing. And I think when you become a mother, you really work this out, or a parent. It's amazing how much you can get done in 2 hours.
Yeah.
When you don't have a choice.
Yeah. And also
That's all the time you have, and you've got to get it done.
Because I only work 3 days a week. I have him on Tuesdays and Fridays. And if you told me that a while back, I would have been like, there's no way I can take those days off. And now it's just like, I just have to set that boundary and go, I will not be doing any work, because the thought of juggling this child while trying to have a business meeting or working when he naps, because I'm a big sleeper. When he naps, I definitely nap. To go, oh, the whole world didn't fall down. And if anything, I got smarter, more agile, because I'm like, you've got 3 days, get it done, and figure out what resource you're missing in order to be able to get it done.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, let's end on that happy note. It's been absolutely wonderful having you in the studio on Change Loves Company. Thank you so much, Abbey Pantano.
Thank you, Dom. Thanks for having me.